Tonight is the 75th yard site of the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father, Rabbi Levy Yitshak ben Baruch Shalom, a great Kabbalist and Rav. I'd like to start with two stories. One day, Rabbi Levy Yitshak, Zatsal, was giving a drasha. And in his drasha, as customary, he would bring from the Midrash, from the Talmud, from the Zohar, from the Jerusalem Talmud, from Chassidus, from Kabbalah, and intertwine this extraordinary, vast knowledge into a beautiful tapestry of Torah. At the end of his drasha, one of the Chassidim that happened to pass by the city where he was a rabbi came up to him and asked him, Rabbi Levy, who are you talking to? Look at the crowd. Who is shaykh to understand what you're talking about? And Rabbi Levy said, you see that young boy in the corner over there, pointing to his son, the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said, he understands everything I'm saying. Story number one. And then my favorite story is story number two. Rabbi Levy, after giving such a drasha, such a talk, would ask his son, the Rebbe, as a young man, to give all the references that were mentioned and the quotations, to quote exactly where it says in the Talmud and the Zohar, everywhere. So a Chassid went up to Rabbi Levy and said, you gave the talk. You know what you're talking about. Why do you need your son to give you again the references of where it was from? Rabbi Levy explained the following. We have many times in the Talmud different quotations, the same quotation in a different way. In different parts of the Talmud, sometimes the same citation will be in the Zohar, in the Midrash, in a different context, in a different situation, after different examples. He said, when I give my drasha, and I have in mind a certain halach, a certain way of thinking things through, and afterwards I hear how my son perceived it, and how he, when he received the information, actually referred to another part, suddenly my drasha takes what's called panim chadashas. It takes now a refresher course. It's like a refresher course in looking with a new perspective, a refreshed perspective at what I just taught. We can understand that if the Rebbe had a very particular way to approach Torah, it's because he got it somewhere. He got it from his father. In the first page, we have a letter where Rabbi Levy answers his son, the Rebbe, with beautiful words. Ahuvai, Mahmadai, Beni vekalati sheyichyu. My beloved one, my cherished ones, my son and daughter-in-law, concerning the Dvar Torah, concerning the dissertation of Torah that you wrote to me. It is beautiful. It is correct. 6 months later, Rabbi Levy tells him, I received it. I didn't have time to go into the depth of it. But I want to tell you that everything you did is beautifully in place. But I implore you, I ask you, please, try to bring more Kabbalah in your teachings of the revealed aspect of the Torah, in the dissertation, in your discussions, in your research. And indeed, Rabbi Levy will ask that whenever you talk about a matter which is in the realm of the revealed aspect of Torah, which is Talmud, Halacha, try to see where you can find the mirror of it in Kabbalah. And whenever you study Kabbalah, try to find the mirror of it within the Talmud and the other sources. This is the way that Rabbi Levy would look at Torah. Maybe just to mention, even though I didn't have the intention tonight to do this, a reshima of the Rebbe where he mentions that the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe tells him something which the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe refers to as shofaro shel Mashiach, the shofar of the Geula, a word of the Ragachover. The Ragachover says that from the bet of Bereshit all the way to the Lamed of Le'enei Kol Yisrael is one long word. One long word. This is based on a Tosefta in Sanhedrin, Perek Zayin, Halacha Bet, where there's an argument between two rabbis, Rabbi Meir and Chachamim, or the sages against Rabbi Meir. A law that we saw in the laws of Talmud Torah and the Rambam concerning a rabbi giving a class on one subject matter. Who takes precedence in asking a question, questioning the rabbi? So, according to Rabbi Meir, you have to ask the subject matter, about the subject matter that's being talked about at that moment. And then the next one in line is the one that asks Lemase Halacha, a person that needs a halachic response right away, and so on and so forth. Chachamim Omrim, the sages say, you can ask about any subject matter, even the subject matter that he's not talking about now. Why? Ki kol haTorah kula inyan echad hu. Because the whole Torah consists of one thing. Like the Ragachover said, from Bet of Bereshit all the way to Lamed. That's the way of Rabbi Levy, that's the way of Chassidus, in looking at the Torah as Kikar Zahav, one big golden block that forms the menorah of Torah, not as welded entities which come together to form a new one, rather a Kikar, one big block. Tonight, let me invite you in a adventure, in a journey through the perspective of Rabbi Levy, through discussions of the Talmud, but looked from a higher level. Leshitatayu. Leshitate, how exactly, what is the foundation that creates the difference? What's the foundation that creates the difference of perspective between Abaye and Rava? We have two rabbis that are mentioned. Anybody knows how many times Abaye and Rava are mentioned in the Talmud? Over 3,000 times. How many times do they argue in the Talmud? 500 times. Out of the 500 times there are arguments between Abaye and Rava, the halacha in all cases are like Rava, at the exception of 6 cases. We'll see, it could be 6 or 9 cases, maybe even 10. And this is what the Talmud says in Nida and in Kiddushin. The halacha is like Rava everywhere except in Yael Kagam. Yael Kagam Yud Ain Lamed Kagam Kuf Gimel Shin. I'm sorry, Kagam Kuf Gimel Mem. You'll understand after why I said Shin. Kuf Gimel Mem. 6 discussions which form this acronym of these 6 letters. There's a discussion on the 3rd letter, and of each one, what discussion are we talking about? Basically, we have Yud, which is Yehush Shelo Midat, Ayin, which is Edim Zomemim, Lamed, which is Lechi Haomed Me'elav. It could be another one as well. I'm not going to go into that. Even the Ragachover himself has his own chidush in what that Lamed means. Kuf, which is Kiddushin Shelo Nimseru Lebiyah, and Gimel, which is Gilui, Dat, Beget, and Mem, which is Mumar, or it could be something else. Tonight, I know you don't want to spend the whole night with me, so we're only going to be discussing 3 of them, and we're going to, based on the perspective of Reb Levy in who Abaye and who Rava is, and what is exactly the way of looking at both of them, how we should look at these machlokot and see that everything is perfectly in place, even according to Kabbalah. Let's start. We're going to start with the first machloket, the first discussion, which is in Masechet Kiddushin. And this is the discussion about on page Nun Aleph, which is page 5 in your references, concerning Kiddushin Shelo Nimseru Lebiyah. Let me explain. We have a situation. A man says, Achat miken mekudeshet li betabarat zu. One of you two, is consecrated to me with this ring, for example. He is mekadesh, he consecrates one of you. What is the situation? What is the law? Each one of them is safek mekudeshet. We have a doubt if they are married to him or they're not married to him. What does that mean, practically speaking? That both of them can't get married to another man, because at least 50% of them is actually married to this man. So the man is married to half of each one, so to say. Safek, there's a doubt. So what should one do? One situation, at the time when marriage, you were allowed to marry many wives, he could marry both of them and completely get married to both of them. Or he could divorce them, so like this, they're free to get married to whoever he wants, or he just gets married to one and he divorces the other. Like this, the situation is a clear situation. Now we have a more complicated case. What happens if both of these women are sisters? And he said, Achad miken mekudeshet li. One of you two is married to me. Now we have a situation where they're both a little married to the same individual. But what does the Torah say? Right? Lo tikach isha el achota. Right? You're not allowed to take two sisters in their lifetime and to marry them. And now he is safek, in a doubtful situation, married to both. And he's not allowed to get married to both. So the question is, what do we do in this situation? This is a situation which is called, referred to in the Talmud, as Kiddushin Shelo Nimseru Lebiyah. A type of marriage which can never be consumed, because you're not allowed to stay in this situation. You're not allowed to get married and to be married to two sisters. So what do we do? So one situation will say, you know what? First of all, you have to get divorced to both of them. The question is, are you allowed to marry one of them since you were married to half of the other? This is a situation where you just got married, but you never will be able to consume the marriage. Is that considered a marriage or not? Rava says, Kiddushin shelo nimseru lebiyah lo heve kiddushin. A marriage which is not, you're not able to consume this marriage, it's not considered a marriage. It's nothing. And therefore, even though he said, one of you is married to me, it's worthless because it's impossible to marry two sisters. It's as if he never got married, and therefore, if he wishes, he doesn't even have to give a divorce to one of them. He can choose the one he wants to consume the marriage with, and this will be his wife. According to Abaye, Kiddushin shelo nimseru lebiyah, a wedding which cannot be consumed is considered a wedding, and therefore he is married, half married to both, and therefore he will have to get divorced of both and will never be able to marry either. This is the first case. Machloket Abaye and Rava. According to Abaye, the marriage is a valid marriage even though it cannot be consumed. According to Rava, this marriage is not a marriage to start with. He can take one of them. Case number 2. You're going to like this one. It's one of my favorite ones. Edim Zomemim. Edim Zomemim in Masechet Sanhedrin, Daf Chav Zayin, 27 Aleph. We have a situation. We have Reuven and Shimon. On the 21st of Nisan, they saw Yaakov kill Levy. They testified, Yaakov killed Levy in Jerusalem on the 21st of Nisan at 11 a.m. 2 months later, there's a group of witnesses, let's call them Ephraim and Menashe. They say, what are you talking about? Reuven and Levy? So, the first step, they could say, that's not true. Yaakov never killed. He never killed. Reuven and Shimon, he said, Yaakov never killed Levy. So we have what's called the achasha. We have one group of witnesses say he killed them. Another group of witnesses which says he didn't kill them. He didn't kill. That's a contradiction between two, an argument between two sets of witnesses. But then there is what we call a chidush Torah. What is the chidush, the epiphany here? The novel way that the Torah introduces, it's called collusive witnesses. What does it mean? You have a question of edim zomemim. Edim zomemim means that the next set of witnesses, which is, we said the first set of witnesses is Shimon and Reuven. The second set of witnesses is Ephraim and Menashe. Ephraim and Menashe say, what are you talking about? How could they testify? Reuven and Shimon testified that Yaakov killed in Jerusalem at 11 a.m. when they were with us in Ashdod having coffee. So here the Torah brings a new perspective, a chidush davar, which is we're going to believe the second set of witnesses over the first one. And therefore, the two first witnesses, Reuven and Shimon, which wanted to bring about a capital punishment on Yaakov, will be punished with that punishment and will believe the second set of witnesses. Really, why should we? Why should we believe the second one? It's a chidush of the Torah. It's a novel way that the Torah introduces that logically doesn't make sense, but that's the way it is, that's the halacha. The question is the following. Follow carefully. Everybody understood this case? The question is like this. This happened, the actual first testimony that Yaakov killed Levy by Reuven and Shimon, this testimony happened on the 21st of Nisan. 2 months later, Ephraim and Menashe came to say, no, they were with us. The question is, these witnesses that testified that Yaakov killed Levy, Shimon and Reuven, are they pasul? Are they witnesses which are not kosher, which are liars, which are rendered disqualified? Are they disqualified from the moment that we we receive the testimonial of the second set of witnesses, which means lehaba, from now on, now that we made the psak din? Or would you disqualify them from the moment they made the false testimony? You understand the difference? Everybody understands? Which means, if you're going to say, we're going to disqualify these witnesses from now on, it means that now, if tomorrow they're going to appear on a contract or they're going to testify for somebody, the testimonial is worth zero. Why? Because the Beit Din decreed they are not kosher witnesses. Or you could say, hey, when exactly, what got them to be non-kosher witnesses? A testimony that was false 2 months before. So any testimony from the 21st of Nisan all the way till they got caught, that too should be rendered not kosher. So that's called edim zomimin. Lemafrea o lehaba. Lemafrea unifsal o lehaba. Is it the ed zomem, these group of witnesses, these first witnesses, are you going to say that they're not kosher already from the date of the testimony that was bad? Or only from the date that the psak din, the final rendering of the court, of the rabbinical court was issued, that they're not kosher? So Rava says, from now on, they're not kosher. According to Abaye, they're not kosher already from the moment they did this false testimony. That's the second discussion. The third discussion is in Baba Metzia, page 21, Amud Bet, page 7 in our reference book. Yeush shelo midat. A person, let's take Reuven, for example. Reuven got a beautiful Parker pen that his wife spent $180 on. Gift, 10 years of marriage, beautiful Parker pen. The only problem is, neither Reuven's wife or Reuven wrote his name on the pen or put his phone number. In case you find it, call me. He lost the pen. It doesn't have a siman. It doesn't have something which indicates that it belongs to him. Reuven went to Machane Yehuda. He went to the market. He got himself very nice vegetables, fresh vegetables, kosher ones. And at 10 a.m. this happened, and he lost his Parker pen. He didn't realize he lost his Parker pen till noon. Meanwhile, you were walking in Machane Yehuda and you found the pen. This pen, is it considered hefker? Is it considered something which is already a lost object that has been, a hope has been given up on? Or is it considered an object that still has an owner? Which means the following. Do we consider that the one that lost the pen, since he's going to give up on it, therefore it's as if he gave up on it right now, and you're allowed to take ownership of this pen? Or do we consider that no, till he realizes at noon that he lost the pen, this pen, he did not yet give up on this pen still belongs to him? So the halacha is the following. According to Abaye, if he lost the pen and it doesn't have a sign, and he is not yet aware that he lost it, it still belongs to him. Yeush shelo midat lo heve yeush. But according to Rava, if he lost it and he is not yet aware that he lost it, we consider it already as if he was already aware, because anyways he's going to give up on it. Yeush shelo midat heve yeush. Rava consider it that it is yeush. Now, we have three machlokot. Kiddushin shelo nimseru lebiyah, the marriage, we have the case of Edim Zomimim, the collusive witnesses, and we have the case of Yeush Shelo Midat, a lost object. 3 machlokot, 3 opinions. Ma yesod ha-machloket, what is the foundation of this dispute? What exactly are they arguing about? To find this out, you have to know that one of the particular ways of looking at things is that in what we call Torat Leshitateh, which means when you look at the way an Amora, a rabbi of the a sage of the Talmud speaks, it is explained to us in Chassidut, and especially developed by the Rebbe, that the individual that speaks, the name he has, the teacher that taught him, the students that he will teach, the place where he lives, his shoresh neshama, the source of his soul spiritually, all of them are really one unit and they influence his perspective. So really, every individual has a special way of looking at things, and it has to do with something which is higher than just having an argument. One has one source of neshama, of soul, the other one has another source. His neshama has a source which is of a different, and this is where they're arguing. To understand this, let's go to Masechet Brachot, page 48. Abaye, first of all, let me give you a little background. Abaye and Rava. Abaye lost his mother, and then he lost his father. He was a yatom, he was an orphan at a very young age. And his uncle, Rabba, with a hey, adopted him. The word Abaye, Abaye himself, spells a pasuk, a verse, which is Asher becha yerucham yatom. Through you, the orphan will be consoled. He was an orphan. He studied by Rabba. Rava, with an Aleph, was a student of Rav Yosef. Both of them were from the house of Eli HaKohen, which we'll explain that a little later. Rava and Abaye became the students of Rabba. Rabba, when they were young, asked them a question. He said, Lemi mevarchim, who do we bless? And they said, Lerachmana, we bless God. What type of a question is that? And then he asked, Verachmana, hechayatif. And God, where is God? Where is Hashem? So here, the 2 young boys had a separate answer. Rava said, pointed to the roof of the house, and he said, Hashem is here. Abaye, on the other hand, as a young boy, ran out of the house and pointed to the sky, and he said, Hashem is here. Hashem is there. The reaction of the teacher was an excitement, a joy, the joy that a teacher has when he has a special student. He said to them, Butzin, Butzin, Katfe Yedia. Cucumbers, cucumbers. From the moment that, Katfe Yedia, right? You know, from the moment of the chanata, from the moment it first shapes, you know if it's going to be a good cucumber. When I hear your answers, I know you're going to be Gdolei Israel, you'll be of the great rabbis of Israel. Let me ask you, what did Rava see in Abaye and Rava in their answers that made him say, wow, you guys are brilliant, you'll be great? And eventually they were, because being mentioned 3,000 times in the Talmud, that's pretty great. Let's look in Rosh Hashanah, page 18. The last page. Rosh Hashanah, page 18. It talks about the end of the life of Rava and Abaye. Over there it says, we know that, as we said before, that Rava and Abaye were from the house of Eli Kohen. There was a decree on the house of Eli Kohen that the children that unfortunately would eat the korbanot in a gluttonous way, the offerings in a gluttonous way, they would have a certain disrespect and so on and so forth. I'm not going to go into the details, had a curse that they would not live past 20 years. Rava lived till 40 years. Abaye lived till 60 years. The Talmud asks, why? How come they got an extra life? Well, Rabbi, it's very simple. Rava got an extra life, 20 years more, 40 years old. He passed away because he was oseg b'Torah. He was busy in the study of Torah. And Abaye, why did he merit to live 60 years, another 20 years extra? Because he was oseg b'Torah ubegmilut chasadim. Not only was he busy with the study of Torah, but he was equally busy in doing good deeds. We said earlier that the spiritual makeup of a person, of a sage of the Torah, affects his perspective. What the Talmud is telling us with these two stories, it's giving us a taste in who these two giants were. And now, I'm going to ask everyone to please tighten your seatbelts and light up your cigarettes. No, just joking. Because we're going to fly to another dimension. Now, based on these two stories, we're going to go in a spiritual dimension and unveil a different understanding, a more mystical understanding of these two giants. But before we do that, let's explain a Kabbalistic concept that's brought down in Hasidus, in Hasidic philosophy, as well as in Kabbalah. There are two dimensions. There is what we call a makif, and there is what we call pnimi. Makif is something which is surrounding. Pnimi is something which is internalized, which is penetrating. For example, there is a reality which is tangible, which I can grasp, which I can absorb. And then there is a reality which is far from me. It's all understood, correct? A cup, a car, the world, it's a reality which is close to me. I can grasp it. The heavens, the stars, the constellations, this is something which is above me. A drawn reality, a reality which is aloof. This is called makif. Now that we understand these two realities, let's take away the reality which is close to us, and let's speak only about the reality which is drawn far from us. The reality which is beyond our reach. Within the reality which is beyond our reach, the makif, there is what we call makif hakarov and makif harachok. There is what's far from me, but I could relate to it. And there is something which is far from me, and I can't relate to it at all. I have absolutely no relation to it whatsoever. Is that clear to everybody, these two realities? I'm going to give you an example. First, my personal example. If you take the sun and the moon are realities which are far from us, but we can relate to it because, it's something which is closer to our understanding, even though it's above us. If you talk about the reality which is completely above that, the universe which is above the sun and the moon, it's a reality which we do know nothing about and is completely out of our reach. It's an out of reach reality. Then I'll give you the example that Rabbi Yoel Khan, Sheyichye, gives. You have a rabbi, you have a teacher. The teacher is teaching the student. He teaches him something that he understands. That's a reality that's close. It's or pnimi. Then you have the teacher that teaches something, and I hope it's not the case today, of a reality which is above my understanding, but I understand that I don't understand. The rabbi is talking about this, that. Oh, there's something there, I can relate to it, but from far, I understand that I don't understand. Then there's another reality, which is, I don't even understand that there's a dimension that exists in the rabbi's head. For example, when you have a great Talmudist like the Ragachover that speaks about Torah and makes connections, so there is going to be the dimension, you realize, I don't understand, but I know there's something there. And then there's what's going on in his head, which is completely flying over your head. You don't even understand that you don't understand. You even know there's such a reality. So this is a reality which is aloof, but I can relate to. And this is a reality which is aloof that I don't even relate to. It's so high. Rabbi Levy explains that these two realities, these two levels of reality, the reality which is far, but I can relate to it, and the reality which is far, and I can't even relate to it, it's so far and so high, is basically the difference between Abaye and Rava. Let's explain. How long did we say Rava passed away at what age? I'm sorry? 40. And what age did Abaye pass away at? 60. In Hebrew, every letter has a numerical value. What is the letter that is associated to 40 and 60? No? Mem and Samech. What is particular about a final mem, a mem sofit, and a samech that's different with all the other letters of the Hebrew alphabet? Exactly. These are letters which are completely closed. The mem is closed, and the samech is closed. And therefore, when you think about it, what does it mean when you have something which is closed? It's something which is not in your grasp. It's a reality which is far from you, which is out of reach. But there's a difference between the mem and the samech. The mem is a square. The samech is a circle. A square, by nature, a square already has a beginning, has an end. A samech has no beginning, no end. So, what do you think? Which one of the realities is above our understanding, and we can't even relate to it? While, which one is a reality that we can relate to? Exactly. Mem is already the reality which is close to us, while Samech is the reality which is too far for us it's impossible for us to relate to. Besides that, if you look at the letter Samech, a Samech is a Samech, whether it's in the middle of a word, whether it's at the end of the word. But a Mem which is closed could be open in the middle of a word. So it's a reality which is close to us, has some grasp, while the Samech is a reality that has no grasp whatsoever. Besides that, if you look at a Samech and a Mem, and you put them on a line, the Mem will sit nicely. It has some type of connection to reality, while the Samech is a circle. It doesn't have a connection to reality. Samech, we said, is who? Abaye. The reality which is aloof, which is unreachable. You cannot relate to this reality. Rava is the reality you can relate to, the one which is tangible. Now already, you have an indication of why in the 3,000 times they're mentioned, in the 500 arguments they have, the majority goes according to who? According to Rava. Because Rava is pragmatic, is practical. It's the reality that has to do, that we can relate to. Abaye, on the other hand, is a reality which is aloof, which is something we cannot relate to. Now, based on this, we can understand. A house in Torah looks like what? Like a square, like a mem sofit. The sky is called in Hebrew what? The dome of the sky, kipat hashamayim, like a circle, like the samech. Rava says, where's? Rava asks them, Echayativ Rachmana, where is he? Rava, which has to do with the Mem 40, with the reality which you can relate to, points to the Gag, points to the roof of the house, which is square like the Mem. Abaye goes out and points to the sky, to the reality which is aloof, which is not reachable, which you cannot relate to. Here you see, just in the events of their life, the way they grew up as children, the way they passed on, how that is an expression of who they are in their shoresh neshama. Now that we have all these netunim, all this information, and I know it's a lot of information for one evening, let's review and re-examine our three machlokot, our three discussions, and try to understand why Rava held this way while Abaye held that way. A little sikum. Rava represents someone which is pragmatic, somebody which is practical, somebody which is the reality which is aloof but you can relate to. Abaye represents the reality which is a little far-fetched, a little out there, beyond our reach, beyond something we could relate to. First case, Kiddushin shelo nimseru lebiyah. A man, I remind you of the case, a man says, one of you is married to me, but he said this to two sisters and he's not allowed to get married to two sisters. Is that considered a wedding or not? Is that considered a marriage? If it is considered a marriage, he cannot be married to two sisters, even half of them, or as a doubt, he cannot stay with them even one more second. He needs to divorce both of them and can never marry either. But if you say that the marriage actually was a marriage, even though it could never be consumed. But according to another opinion, you could say, since it's a marriage that cannot be consumed, the marriage never happened. And therefore, they're not even safek mekudeshet, they're not even married in any doubt. They're never married because this marriage could never be consumed because you cannot be married to two sisters. So let me ask you, what did we say Rava says and what did we say Abaye says? According to Rava, a marriage which cannot be consumed is not considered a marriage. And therefore, even though he said, one of you is married to me, it's not considered a marriage. And therefore, if he wants, he can marry one of them. But according to Abaye, it is considered a marriage. Can you think why? What is Kiddushin? Kiddushin is the act of betrothal. The act of saying, Areat Mekud, you are now consecrated to me. And then, is that something which is a reality which is close or a reality which is far? Meaning, let's take halachically speaking. Halachically speaking, when a person does Kiddushin, it's still some type of reality which is not practical because he didn't consume the marriage. Once he consumes the marriage, that actually becomes part of his reality. He actually becomes one at that moment. That's the real marriage. So the question is like this. If you have a reality that is not going to translate itself into practicality, is that a reality or not? Halachically speaking, something which is not practical, do you consider it or not? According to Rava, which is the mem, which represents practicality, he says, what are you talking about? You'll never be able to consume this marriage. It's not practical. So the marriage is null, is void, is zero. He never married anybody, and therefore he can marry whoever he wants. But according to Abaye, which holds that even a reality which is not practical is still considered a reality, even if it's a reality which you cannot relate to, it's not practical. Therefore for him, the marriage is a marriage. He needs to divorce both of them. First case. Is that understood for everybody? Second case. Edim Zomemim. The collusive witnesses. We said Reuven and Shimon testified that Yaakov killed Levy on the 21st of Nisan. Ephraim and Menashe on the 21st of Sivan, 2 months later, declare Reuven and Shimon were with us in Ashdod. How do they say they were in Jerusalem? So, Et Zomem, למפרע הוא נפסל או להבא הוא נפסל? When do you consider these set of witnesses that testified in Nisan, now that they've been officially declared by the Bet Din, when we received the testimonial of Ephraim and Menashe, do you consider them that they are now non-kosher witnesses from now on, once the court has said they're not kosher, or already 2 months before when they did the testimonial that rendered them not kosher? What is the reality which is practical, pragmatic? What? Which one? What? Now, practically speaking, the judgment of the rabbinical court happened now. And that's tangible, that's practical. The halacha is going to be that from now on they're not kosher according to who? According to Rava, because Rava is a practical person. But according to Abaye, he says, what is the logic? What happened that brought about this final judgment? And that logic too should be considered. And that's why Abaye says, Lemafrea unifsal. The witness already, all his testimonials from that first false testimony is considered to be not kosher. And now the third case. And here I'd like to introduce the third case again because it's counterintuitive. I'd like you to think about this. I'm going to repeat the case. I want you to think, what would logically make sense? Now that we know what we know about Abaye, Rava, we've already studied 2 cases with them through this perspective of Reb Levy. Shimon loses his $180 Parker pen in Machane Yehuda. There's 10,000 people that go through Machane Yehuda every day. The numbers are not accurate, but Shimon lost his pen at 10 a.m. He found out he lost his pen at noon. Do I consider, when I found the pen at 11, that since he's going to give up on his pen when he finds out that he lost it at 12, I already consider it as if he gave up now? Do I consider it already as if he gave up? Or do I consider that only when he will find out that 12, it's considered giving up? So according to Abaye, the halacha is what?
That it's still considered that he lost it already, because for him he talks about the spiritual, not about the reality.
Okay, so I'm not going to say that to those who are listening online, because it's exactly the opposite. But you fell exactly in the same trap that anybody that follows the logic we've said till now will fall into. Abaye here says something which is the opposite of what everyone would think. Abaye said, Lo heve yush. As long as Shimon did not find out consciously that he lost his pen, we cannot consider this pen ownerless. It still belongs to him. According to Rava, even though he did not find out consciously that he didn't know consciously that he lost his pen, we already consider it from the moment he lost it as if he was conscious already, and it's ownerless. It doesn't make sense. To understand this, we have to go into the Reshimot Shiuri to understand the machloket. So let me take you to another place for a second, and we will bring light, we'll shed some light on this discussion. And we'll understand then what Rabbi Levy is talking about. There are two realities in man. There is a reality that goes without saying. We'll call it the subconscious reality. And there's a reality which is the result of an inner discussion and a logic which brings you to a conclusion, which will bring you to a certain conclusion, to a certain reality. Let me explain. It goes without saying that every man that is born, in his reality, in his subconscious, it's a given that he wants to establish a family, get married, have kids, have a home. It goes without saying. It's a reality which is part of the making of man, with no discussion. It's within man's nature. It's a given. Then there is the new iPhone 77 that comes out. Is it a part of reality that we want this phone? Oh, it could project on the, I don't know, has new effects, I don't know what it can do. It talks, it walks. I don't know what will happen by the time they come to iPhone 77. And now, does it mean that I want it? No. My will and this reality of me wanting this phone is a result of a logical understanding, a discussion in my mind that brings me to a conclusion. It's not a given. You understand the two ways of thinking? There's the subconscious and the one that has to go through a conscious mind. So in the Gemara, there's a discussion concerning an object. Let's say this pen has a siman. It has a sign, has my name on it, Shy Amar. And I went to the beach. Don't tell anyone. I went to the beach on my kayak, and at 10 a.m. I lost my pen. What happens? I only found out at 12 noon that I lost my pen. But I know I lost it at the beach. Do I have any hope whatsoever to even recover my pen? No. It's a reality that's a given by me. It's even in my subconscious, I know I gave up on this pen. Then there's the reality of a pen that didn't have my name on it, which I lost in Machaneh Yehuda. At the end, it's true, I'm going to come to the same conclusion. I lost the pen, I'll never find it. There's 10,000 people going through Machaneh Yehuda. But it's not a given. There's a 0.001% in my mind that maybe I'm going to find it. Or if you're superstitious, maybe even 0.5% that I'm going to find it. But then I'll come to the conclusion that I won't, and I'll give up. The question is the following. When Shimon loses his pen, his $180 Parker pen that doesn't have his name on it, doesn't have a sign, in Machaneh Yehuda, there's going to be 0.1% that he think maybe I'll find it, but at the end he'll give up on it. Do I consider the 0.1% as a reality, as something real, or do I consider it as if he lost it in the ocean and it's not even considerable? According to Rava, which is practical, it's not even a consideration. According to Abaye, which considers even the reality which is far off, which is more spiritual, which is less tangible, he considers that too is a reality that needs to be considered. And therefore, he cannot take ownership of the pen till he realizes that he actually lost the pen. Here we have 3 of the 6 machlokot through the eyes of Reb Levy of looking at a reality which is tangible and a reality which is not tangible, which is not practical, which is more of the spiritual or the intellectual realm. Abaye and Rava. And now to conclude, this great sign, the sages, the different rabbis, the commentaries of the Talmud asked the question, Ya'el Kagam, you gave a sign, an acronym for these 6 discussions by the name of Yud, Ayin, Lamed, Kuf, Gimel, Shin. Why in that order? That's not the order of the Talmud. Which means the discussions don't follow the order of the Talmud. Why did our rabbis choose this order specifically? The Noda B'Yehuda in Doresh Letzion, Drush 8 Chet, explains how one discussion leads to another discussion, which leads to the other, and that's why the order is like this. Very extensive, very long. Rabbi Levy explains things in a different way. Ya'el Kagam, Abaye and Rava, from the house of Eli Kohen, which are from the tribe of the Levites. Levy, the Levites are those who sang in the temple. The Levites represent those who elevated things from a pragmatic reality to a very spiritual reality. What will happen when Mashiach comes? Even that spiritual reality will go to a much higher reality. Ya'el, it will be elevated. Hu Kagam. Kagam, Kehat, Gershon, Merari. The 3 Levites will be elevated to a new dimension. And these 3 are therefore connected to Abaye. Because today, when we live in a very practical world, the halacha is like Rava. But when Mashiach reveals himself, the halacha will be like Abaye. Will be at such a spiritual level that will be even able to touch and to live in what's not tangible, in what's much higher. There'll be an elevation in the whole world. So why did our sages give us Yael Kagam? Why do we need to know about these things? Why did they give us this sign of Yael Kagam, which is these 6 machlokot, to show us that, you know what, sometimes in reality, we look at our fellow Jew, we look at the reality of the world, and we see a person and we judge them by the car they drive, by the clothes they wear, by the way they express themselves, by what they know, what they don't know. But then there's a reality that we don't know about, which is over our head. The potential of that individual. You want to live with Mashiach, you have to live a little like Abaye. You need to look at the essence of this individual and tap into that potential which is in you, which is in him, which is that little piece of Mashiach which is inside of him. And like this, as we do this and we look at the deeper meaning of things, we'll be able to come to Yael Kagam, which means to be elevated to the true times that we are waiting for with Mashiach. Amen. Thank you.